Good afternoon, and welcome, y'all, to the day after Christmas and all of those good things. Another afternoon with elevation moments. And please go out there and share, care, and like, and invite some other folks to come and join us today. We are not going to be on here long. Y'all know I say that all the time. It depends on you guys. How about that? Whatever feedback you give me is how we will operate into another level, right? And so today I am super excited because it's the day after Christmas, and I know some of you are just kicking it back today. You're resting. You're probably still eating some good old cake and pie. I know my daughter has got some stuff in here that I'm just going to try my best not to eat all of it. Good afternoon, Miss Carrie. Thank you so much for joining me on today, and thank you so much for your patronism to Victoria Elevates, along with some other great folks. If they tune in today, I will acknowledge them as well. But I want to thank those people that are continue to help us support and serve these three families that we are trying to help before the end of this week. We are still in need of 24 people to donate $50 towards the cause. You can sow that seed by using the link that's listed here to help us help those individuals that are still facing challenges. Because some people, just because Christmas came, doesn't mean that anything has changed in some people's lives. And, and that's what we're trying to help with these three families that are in desperate need. I'm going to say this and then I'm not going to say it again because I said it on Friday show. I don't know what that show was, Sunday. I don't know what that was. But I said I was still a little disappointed in how people were not, supporting these families, because it's not just my three families that I'm trying to help. It's families across the globe that are still in need. Somebody sent me a message and said, well, there's plenty of organizations out there to help. That is true. But if you have ever worked in the government industry, you will know that at the end of the year, especially with nonprofits, because I have been a part of nonprofit organizations, as I was sharing with Ms. Carrie and some other folks. I've been a part of some nonprofit organizations in my lifetime as a grant writer, and as also as well as being an individual that actually work for nonprofit organizations. So at the end of the year, most of their funds are already drained. So at the end of the year, when you're talking about Salvation Army and Red Cross and those places, those companies have already ended out. They've already tapped out for the year, and they're waiting for their new funds to come in the new year. And so that makes it hard for people like these three families that I'm trying to help at the end of the year, because there are not any funds available. So we are seeking assistance from those individuals out there that are in private investors, people that want to help do what you truly say, and that is be a help to people, be a blessing to somebody else. And so we continue to ask for those 24 people to join Miss Carrie and other people to be a part of helping these three families, because we're getting to the end of trying to get this done, and I need your help. So, please feel free to join in with Ms. Carrie. Ms. Carrie, again, thank you so much for your support and your continued patronism to Victoria Elevates, and we'll definitely appreciate you here. So, guys, I'm sure most of you had a great Christmas. I know you did. We got to spend some time with with my grandbabies a little bit yesterday for a brief, more, for a little bit. And then we also got to be able to talk to some other family members over the holidays, which was great. I spent yesterday doing some things a little bit different, after the boys were gone and the girls were gone. Because sometimes, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is about talking and walking in change, right? Because in order for us to see some things happen, we have to be able to move in a different arena, if you will. And so that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today, because I want to start, because, we've been talking about this for people that, when you're getting ready to go into the new year, everybody who sits and waits, and they do resolutions, and they start, creating things, at that point. Can I be honest with you? That is not the only time that you can develop a plan of action to move to your next level. Many people, that I won't say many because that that sounds a little bit much, but there have been people that have been reaching out to me recently since we've been talking about change on Victoria Elevation, doing the elevation moments, as well as some other programs that we've been doing. We've been asked to tap into some Zoom programs, and people have been asking the question, what is it, what makes it different for us now when we start seeing change happen? And this is the thing, we expect change to be something that magically you could wave a wand at and it takes root right then. Let me explain to you that change is a process. Like anything else, change becomes a process that you have to walk through, right? It doesn't, some things do start, you start to see some things happening over a period of time. But typically when you're looking for a change is something that has to be processed. It's a process that you have to go through to see it through to the end, right? And so, we were on a Zoom the other day. People were asking us about the workshop that we're having on January 20th. And if you haven't signed up, we'll give you more information about that. But January 20th here in High Point, we're going to be conducting a vision boarding, crafting, with actual wine and vision boarding workshop that we're going to be talking about manifestation, how that works. We're going to be talking about developing a true vision board, or I like to call it elevation boards, because I believe you can't always say, you can't just have a vision. You got to see, you're going to want that vision to rise, right? And so we're going to be talking about that at the conference. We're also going to be allowing people to go ahead and do some painting, as a gift to themselves that day. So it's going to be a big event. And so we've had some people that have asked us that we would come and talk about it. So we did so. And so we're talking about how important it is. Hey, Miss Deborah K, thanks so much for watching, my dear friend. I appreciate you. We've been talking about how that, we have to get into a process. And one of the things that I want to encourage you is that change is a continuous process. It's something that you have to continuously do. And how you do that and how you set yourself up to do it is the part where sometimes we get stuck, right? And so as you're getting ready to go into 24, I want to talk, because that's where our mindset is for most people, is that they're like, what does it look like? I'm going to change in 24. I'm going to change in 24. And sometimes the reason why it doesn't come to that fruition is because we're still processing in the same way, right? So one of the things I'm going to give you, I said I was going to give you 3 points because, as a coach, we try to kind of keep things to a limit. But I'm going to give you 4 points, right? And the first one that I want to encourage you about, first of all, is to change your atmosphere. And what I mean by that is people, places, and things that you're around, right? One of the, I'm teaching this same system in my positive self-building class, building positive relationships. Sometimes the first step is to change your atmosphere, change who you're associated with, right? Because when you change, because sometimes people can mean all the well good in anything, right? But sometimes what happens is people, places, and things, we get into, in which the book is still coming out, we get into people pleasing, right? And we get into that to the point that we can't understand why somebody's going. And sometimes it requires you to utilize the 3-step program that we talk about so frequently. Then that's being silent. Sometimes changing your atmosphere is actually changing how you approach people, places, and things about it. Changing your atmosphere means that first S in the 3-step program, and that's silence. Sometimes you can be, how do I say this? You can speak something repeatedly to some folks, and it just becomes to them hearing it and not understanding it. And sometimes that negative energy can cause you not to want to continue to change how you look at some things. And so when I tell you that it is important that we as individuals understand how important it is that we take that first step and we change our atmosphere, change the people, places, and things that are in your circle, right? If it's not, my theory is this: if it's not helping you grow, is what? It's time to let it go. So sometimes you have to change the negative people that are in your atmosphere, and that's what I'm referring to. Change those connections, because sometimes that is what causes us not to move to our next level. We're dependent on people, places, and things who do not understand what your vision and your mission is. And that will cause you to change, will cause you to keep yourself stuck in the same places that you've already been. So let's start looking at how we can actually change that, because it's more important for us to see things clearly. The song says, I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. And that is so true. Sometimes when the rain is gone, like here in Greensboro right now, it's a little bit cloudy, but if you change how your perspective on looking at that is, then it can cause some other things to happen, right? So the first thing is changing the people, places, and things that you associate yourself with. And so when we do that, it causes us to be able to experience some things on a different perspective. And sometimes I want you to understand that, you have to see some things from a different area that people don't understand. Okay. And this is why it's important for us to kind of take a different look at some things when we're wanting things to be different in our life. And so thank you, Miss Deborah. I definitely agree with you. Sometimes, we have to experience it. And sometimes people say, I have experienced it. No, because sometimes it will keep you stuck. And I like that, Deborah. It keeps us stagnant and stuck. And so that's, as we're processing that, we have to understand how important it is that we don't get stuck, right? And so the next thing I want to talk about is, that sometimes we, as life coaches, as people in the industry will talk about is mindset, and how we need to shift that mindset. The mindset, I'm going to get into it a little bit deeper, because I think sometimes people, especially in some areas, people don't understand when you say your mindset. They're saying, oh, you're trying to take it away from the spiritual aspect. No, not at all. And so let me clarify that right now. Miss Carrie, I'm about to mindset. When we're talking about that, we're talking about helping you understand that the power of your thoughts. The Bible says, for those of you that want to challenge me on it, the Bible says, let this mind so be in you. So if your mind is not set for positive things to happen, then what will happen is that negativity will stay. Right. And so when you're talking about changing the mindset, switching how you think about it. See, there's a thing about, adopting positive thoughts, right? When you think certain ways, that's how things start to occur. The Bible also teaches us about our tongue, the power of our tongue. That's the same thing. When you're talking about that mindset, when you're talking about changing how you think about certain things and how you position your thought patterns with it. One of the things that I encourage all organizations, I'm not going to pinpoint and point fingers today, because that's not my job. My job is not to point fingers. My job is to be able to give you clarity as we go to the development in who we are, right? So when you were talking about certain things, you have to understand what is fueling you, right? Again, some of this goes back to what I just said, changing the people, places, and things that you are around, because what is fueling you and what's giving you the energy that you need sometimes has to be something greater. It has to be something that you can shift. This is the thing. As I'm going through my journey right now, as I'm going through this process myself right now, because I do it every year, not at the end of the year. I do it periodically throughout the year. I start thinking about what some things that I need to change. Even on yesterday, I had to talk to one of my colleagues, and I was communicating back and forth. And one of the things, I agree is that sometimes we have to understand that rest is necessary, rest is needed, and that also goes into impacting how your mind starts to change and develop too. When the mind is not rested, the mind cannot produce what it needs to produce. There's a whole phrase that Coach K was on. She would tell you exactly what it is, and I don't, I can say it, I can do it because I've studied it. It's a part of what I do as a coach. But those molecules and those things in the brain, once you start fueling that with positivity, and that's why sometimes you have to change those people, places, and things that you're associated with, because when you're around the same people who are only can fuel you with negativity, that starts settling in the brain. We as individuals have to understand that when we are studying specifics, when we're talking about wanting to see some things change in our life, we have to change our mind, that we have to change the mindset of how that looks to us. We have to speak to ourselves. We have to say to ourselves, this is the time that we want some things to happen. You have to continue to fuel the mind with positivity. Sometimes the reason why we as individuals don't like technology, we don't like this, we don't like that, is because we tend to only look at the negative side of it. When you are ready to change, you will fuel your mind with the positives of what that looks like. Even when you're depressed, as a person who has been diagnosed previously with anxiety and depression, I can tell you one of the things that helps me when I feel that coming on is to be quiet and get to myself and read positive things, read my own material. I have my own books out there that I can read. I can read the Bible, of course. That's my go-to. I always tease Lisa Washington that I'm always going back and reviewing her book. I go back to something that is going to force me to have a positive mindset to create in me. So you got to understand that it is necessary in this process that the mind is the very first thing that you go to. Go to that very thing that's going to that fuels the rest of you, right? Because if you think about it, when you're tired, why does that tiredness hit first? It hits in the mind and it comes down. That's the reason why we have to be able to understand how important it is that our minds be clear of negative thoughts, right? We have to be clear that sometimes everyone that you talk to, they may mean well, but they're not well for your mind right now. And that's the reason why I encourage you to get to a place where you can feel your own self, where you can see the silence that's in your own mind. Start gravitating to the grounds of work that you need to do for yourself. This is a time where you do not need to let your head be full of all this junk. Release those mindsets. Produce some new energy in your mind. Okay, I'm going to go to the next one. And I've said this before, but I'm going to speak it again because I think it's important that we as individuals, that we understand how important it is to be a continuous learner, learning on a regular basis, right? Continually learning something that is new, something that is positive. Does that mean that you cannot? Okay, some people say, well, I kind of stick to the same old thing. Can I be honest with you? If you're sticking to the same old thing and it ain't working, baby, it's time for you to walk in some change, right? But when you start doing some continuous learning, when you start asking yourself questions about your own dreams and visions, see, this is the thing. A lot of times we don't want to tap into what we need for ourselves because we're afraid of the end results. Can I be honest with you? There are people out there that, like me and you, that are afraid of success. And I know that sounds kind of crazy. Some of us say, well, no, I want to succeed. I want to be able to see what I can do in this next season. Continuous learning will teach us how to evolve in some things. Some of the reasons why I do some things differently now than I did 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when I first started doing doing the elevation moments and the elevated not tolerated and doing certain things, was because I had to go back and revisit some processes. It's time for us to understand that reviewing processes doesn't mean that what we're doing is wrong. It just means that we need to be able to understand what's happening now, what's creating some new thing in us now. Again, going back to the Bible teaches us growth, y'all. It teaches us prosperity. It teaches a mindset that we sometimes miss because we are still stuck in the same places that we have been. It is time for us to understand that when you take on the role of understanding some things, continuous learning means to be able to sit down and study some new information, study some new techniques. There's some things that I'm doing behind the scenes that you will see some gravitation to in coming into the new year, because I have revamped some things, right? When God says do something different, that's what you got to do. You got to learn how to do some things different. We don't process information the same way as we always have. One of the things that people are kind of uptight with is the use of social media. Social media can be bad or good. It's like anything else. Can I be honest with you? Some of y'all sitting on your pews every Sunday can still be bad or good. It just depends on how you handle it. See, this is the thing. We got to get out of this thing that everything is bad. Everything ain't bad. It's how you use it that makes it be bad, right? When you stop thinking about how important it is to change, when you start thinking about it on a different level, change is good. Change ain't always bad. Sometimes the change, that continuous impact of what change does to you, will be able to impact you. When you begin to continue to look at some things and understand the process of reading and the process of taking on challenges for yourself, some things you don't need to voice to everybody, but continue to learn how to do some things. In the process that I'm doing with the classes and some other aspects of the business, I'm taking a whole different look at it based on the research that I have completed for myself. See, this is the thing. When you are developing for yourself, you set specific avenues for you to learn specific things. Most of us are stuck because we are afraid to continue to learn new processes. It's important for you to learn something different, right? Sanity is doing the same thing over and over the same way and getting the same results. I don't know about you, but I'm ready for some new results and some different avenues. As I was listening to a fellow podcaster give accolades to a different program, I was like, God, I get it. I get what that person is saying, but what do I need to do different for me? And that's when God said, you continue to study, you continue to get your mind into a place of understanding. You don't do the same thing every day the same way if it's not producing something different. Right. And sometimes we look for other people to make that change happen for us, but it's because we have to also be equipped to understanding as well, asking more questions, using initiative to be able to say, look, I don't understand it. Can you break it down to me in a simpler language? A lot of times when I'm talking to my daughters, about different things with technology, I said, can you break that down? Because I don't understand it. Even when I'm talking about something that I do, it's the type of wordage that you learn on your own and how you develop that process. Being able to know the difference for yourself will make a difference, right? Understanding the process of change for yourself will make a difference. Trust me, there's some things that I have been looking at. There's some things I've been dealing with, and I'm still saying, God, how can I do something different? Even with trying to help these three families, I'm like, God, what can you give me? What can you show me that I can do different to help these three families? I'm spending time with educating them on doing the resumes. I'm helping spend some time on them developing the process of understanding their value, what their true value is. See, you got to understand that sometimes you got to go past what you know and do what you know. It's time to stop talking about certain things and start walking in a different area. When we start thinking about some things and how that process is, it takes us reading, it takes us comprehending, it takes us taking on new tasks and ways of doing some things, right? And so the last thing I want to talk about today is one of my favorites, and it is yeah, I know Somebody says, what? We got to hear about that again. Yes. No, number 4 is this: goal setting. Goal setting is important, and meeting those goals. And let's look, can I be honest with you? Goal setting incorporates the planning process, right? You have to be able to understand how important it is to do what you do, but you have to set some new goals and objectives to do that, right? And so what I'm telling you is this: sometimes we as individuals, we need to understand that goal setting and planning is a part of the change, right? Sometimes we want to jump out of the fire into the frying pan, but we're not ready because we have not set down some realistic goals. Hey, Regina, thanks for watching. When I tell you, sometimes it's important for us to be able to sit down and look at realistic goals. That's in your personal life, that's in your business life, that's in your spiritual life. It doesn't matter what it is. You as the individual has to learn, we have to learn that that's a part of change. Being able to sit down and do some goal setting, some real achievable goal settings. And that requires some of us to be able to, that requires most of us, let me put it that way. It requires the majority of us to be able to do some things that is different. It requires us to be able to sit down and say, by a certain date, I need to have this process in place. See, the thing is, how I even teach my positive self-building class is different from when some of you first took it a year ago or 2 years ago, because now I see that there's some things that has to be done. And how do we do that? By setting realistic goals to make different aspects of what our change is. When we sit down and we say what didn't work and what does work in relationships in itself, what happens and what didn't happen. So this is the same. When we begin to really look at it, that it is such a place that we have to understand that when we set a goal, this is the goal. You ready? My first goal is that I'm going to be on live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 12:30. Well, that means I have to set a goal that everything else that will keep me from meeting that goal will be eliminated. How do you eliminate? Now, there's things that happen out of season, out of whatever, but in the same token, can I be honest with you? Setting a time, putting it in ink will make a difference. Doing your homework at a certain time makes a difference. Telling yourself when you're going to eat. I'm a diabetic kid, y'all. And so that means I need to eat 3 meals, at least 3 square meals a day, right? But I need to eat those meals at a specific time in order to keep my levels at a certain range. You think that's not important? Let me encourage you that it is. When you're talking about change, you have to put some things in perspective. You have to put some things in order, and goal setting will do that. My daily goal sheet, because I have one on this, today is Tuesdays. There's certain things that I will do on Tuesday, but I had to go back and reevaluate that. Does that really, does doing it on Tuesday, is it effective? Right? So I had to go back and reevaluate, what does it do on Tuesday that it didn't do on Monday? When you start looking at goal planning, goal setting and planning, it keeps you accountable to what you have to do. Accountability is key and is important. It is time for us to understand that setting realistic goals, it holds you accountable. And somebody will say, well, isn't that another example of change? It can be. It should be. Accountability is important. Why? When I think about some of the people that that have, we were reaching out to help these three families. One of the questions was, how, if we help them now, what is that going to change for them later? The question to my statement back to some people on that is, if you would give somebody if you would give them, if you would teach them how to fish, they'll be able to fish for a lifetime. But if you don't even give them the opportunity to learn, how can you say that you're going to help them? That's the reason why I have an issue with people that prejudge other folks. It's time to stop judging people. People and places and things have goals that they have to readjust. Life happens. When you're doing goal setting and goal planning, life actually does happen, guys. That doesn't mean that the person is bad. It doesn't mean that they're good. Hey, Deborah, thanks for what chat to me this morning. I appreciate you, my friend. When I tell you that you have to be able to understand how important these key things are to somebody who is trying to make a difference in their life. The reason why these families that I'm dealing with, they didn't choose to be in this atmosphere. It was like most of us. We didn't plan for the mishaps of life. So guess what? Now that they have it in a process, they're going to be okay for January on through. They're going to be able to meet deadlines that they had already planned. So you got to understand. Hey, Coach K, thanks for joining. When I tell you that most of the reason why we are still trying to battle with this is because we are not looking at the probability. When you're looking at goal setting, when you're looking at that aspect of it, one of the things that you have to include in your goal setting and planning stage is that of the mishaps, right? When I sit down, and I have given some of my students this before, a whole what do you call it, a budget sheet, budget type form. You can put things into your budget, but make sure you have a line item in that budget that's going to say mishaps, right? And sometimes, I can be honest with you, you can still put it in there and still not meet it. It's okay. The thing is, did you initiate it first? Did you put it as a part of the process? Even when we've been working with these three families for the last couple of days, one of the things that we keep emphasizing is this: it's gonna work out. It's gonna change. It doesn't matter who doesn't contribute, who doesn't do whatever, but we're gonna work with what we got, because change is gonna take place because we keep speaking the positive parts of it. See, some of you, if you missed the first part of the show, one of the things that we talked about was changing the atmosphere. That's the first thing is, in this process of change, is changing the people, places, and things that you associate with, because sometimes that does interfere. The second thing was to look at your mindset. Let's change our mindset. Let's put some positive things in there. Coach K, she is one of my mindset fellow colleagues. When you start changing the mind, that changes how your outlook looks at some things. When you also turn around and continue to learn some things, process some things, understanding some things, researching things. But when you get to this particular aspect of goal setting and planning, you have to be able to put into their process the mishaps, the time frames, the strategic moves that people make when we're doing when you're actually doing business plans. I've got a background in doing business plans and grant writing, and one of the things that we look at in that process is, what do you look at the finances from here to here? If you don't have that in your plan, then you have to go back and readjust that. See, there's certain things, there's certain avenues that we have to look at, that it not only affects in the business realm, but it also affects in your personal realm. When I teach personal development, I don't just talk about what you're going to do here, but I want you to gravitate and take this over to the next level. When you understand the positive people, places, and things in your life, all of that is a part of goal setting. What are you going to do differently? How are you going to set that up? See, when you go to talking about change has many different assets. It has many areas that you can process it if we develop it on a different level. It's time for us to look at it at a different pace, right? It's time for us to process it on a different pace. This is the time in the season where most people begin that process of thinking, what am I going to do different in 24? Can I be honest with you? It's time to redo some things now before you walk into 24. Go ahead and start cutting those umbilical cords to things and people, places, and things that you don't need now. Stop it now before you even get to the new year, that way you're already in the process. Already get your act together before you even think about it. It's time to think about how we need to do some things differently. I get to a place where sometimes I get totally quiet. I don't want to talk to nobody because I'm in the process of thinking. And it's not always that I'm depressed. It's not always that I don't. Sometimes I just don't want to be bothered. Let's be real. But there's sometimes I get to that place because I am reprocessing what I'm doing. Right. And we all process on different levels. We all have different techniques of how we do certain things. And that's the reason why it's important for us to be able to understand how we do certain things. Come on now, Deborah. You talking, you already know. Because when we're talking in the positive self-building class about building positive relationships, you have to be able to reevaluate what that language looks like. You have to be able to reevaluate the process. You have to be able to reevaluate with your learning, with your knowledge, what that truly entails. But that's also a part of goal setting. Because somebody said, well, how is goal setting going to affect my relationships? Let me tell you, because sometimes we have given access to things that don't need access to, and you have to reevaluate the relationship to it. As I'm finishing up a business plan for a reevaluation of my business plan for myself, one of the things was I had to revamp what positions I really wanted to be a part of what I'm doing, because there's some things that I don't need to be a part of the new organization. There's some things that doesn't need to be a part of the new classroom format. There's things that doesn't need to be a part of this and that. You have to evaluate why you're switching people, places, and things in your organization or even in your business plan. Because can I be honest with you, when you're talking about your business planning, you're talking not only present, but you're talking futuristically as well. Because your businesses are supposed to grow, just like you are. We are supposed to be in the avenue of growth and potential. We do not stay in the same place all the time. We have to move to another place, another people, places, and things that we are doing in this season. I see. This is the thing. When we start talking about this, Coach K, I just finished rewriting somebody else's thing yesterday. Matter of fact, I'm in the process of I rewrote my own, and that is one of the things we have to understand how that works. And my background in business planning and business and grant writing, it has taken me back to some things that I used to do. So you're more than welcome, Coach K, because this is the thing. If we do not understand what that looks like, it kind of clogs our ear gates, right? It kind of clogs us up, because even when you're talking about regular business and when you're even talking about now, you have to understand what all of these aspects look like and what it can give you, right? Because when you are doing some things, if you're not looking at the full capacity of it, you will lose the feeling that you need. See, this is the thing. When I go silent, baby, I'm going research, right? That's where I'm at. We can't allow ourselves to continue to hold on to some things that do not impact us in a positive way. It's time for us to understand that this is not a time in the season for us to start learning. We have to be able to position ourselves to learn even the more, even as we're going into some new business ventures and some things that God has been pressing in our spirit to do. I'm not going to tell you that everything that you will know, because see, this is the thing. If you're an individual, you have many skills and talents. You never know why they may end up at, right? You don't always know why your gifts and talents will take you. Sometimes your gifts and talents will take you in new avenues of businesses that you didn't even know that was out there. As a matter of fact, some people have been talking to me about some things, and I'm like, I never thought about that. But at the same token, there are some things that I have worked in before that I have got to go back and enhance even to my own business. Why is that? Because we want change. Change comes through us reevaluating the process. All right, guys, I've been on here for 38 minutes and 55 seconds. Okay, 39 minutes. We've been on here for 39 minutes. And that's, I'm doing some changing. Let's just put it that way. Because this is a time in the season where, sometimes you got to show what you're working with. And sometimes you got to be silent of what you're working with, right? So in this season, let's start planning. Let's start doing some things in a different avenue, even with my businesses and those people that will be joining with me on different platforms here in 2024, you'll understand why I'm taking it to another level, where I'm going to ask specific questions. If you want to be a part of what I do, you got to move in a different way. You got to look at it. You got to look at some situations in a different aspect. My background is in business administration. My background is understanding business plans and grant writing and those techniques. Those are things that I have a background in. And so when I go back and I got to say to myself, go back to the plan of action to what you were going to do with Victoria Elevates. What does it look like? How does it vamp up, and what does it do? Baby, I keep telling y'all, stop sleeping on people. Y'all sleeping on too many people that are coming back to the plate, right? We're coming back with some things. Just because it didn't work this way doesn't mean it's not going to work another way. It's time for a change. Baby, it's time for a change. It's time for a change. It's time for a change. I'm going to tell you now, you'll be able to find us on other platforms at different times. Just be out there looking for us. You never know when I'm going to pop up. I just be honest with you. Just because we've set the ground for Elevation Moments to be aired every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday doesn't mean you won't find me some other areas. Some people have been talking to me about some things, and I'm trying to be obedient to it now, okay? Because change means you don't do the same things over, guys. It's time for us to move and elevate to the next level. Guys, as I often say, it's time for us to be empowered, embraced, and educated to be elevated and not tolerated. It's time for a change. Miss Carrie, you are exactly right. It is time for a change. It's time for us to see some things on a different level. When you get in your mind that you're ready to change will take place if you seek out the proper information that you need. Don't just go with the first. Don't go with the second. I'm going to tell you right now, there's a couple of things that I'm going to be telling people that deal with me. You got to change how you do business. You got to change how you do personal development. You got to change how you do contacting with other folks. So y'all getting into another topic. See, Miss Carrie, I can't fool with you. So tomorrow is Wednesday, right? It's even then and even when Wednesday. Come back tomorrow and see what we're going to talk about. Tomorrow we might talk about something totally different that has nothing to do with change, but it can be incorporated into the process of change, right? So this is time for us to move it to the next level. Look for the podcast. Victoria Elevates will be coming back. The podcast is coming back. When I say podcast, this right here, this is broadcasting to me. This is like, TV show kind of stuff. But we do have the Victoria Elevates podcast that will come back on Spotify, and as well as some other areas. You might want to check that out too, because we're coming back. We're changing. We're changing how we're walking right now. We're changing how we do some things. But anyway, guys, I got to rock and roll it. If you need me, you can book me. You can book me. You can need me, and I'll be able to answer all of your questions. Just stay tuned. You're going to see more. You might not want to follow me so much on social media, but you might want to go over to my website. That's a hint. Have a great and wonderful day. And thank you for being elevated and not tolerated. We'll see you real soon.